When you hear about trouble in the Strait of Hormuz, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Oil, right? And look, you're not wrong, but we're about to uncover a massive story that's flying under the radar. So let's get into it.
So here's the question we really need to be asking. While everybody is watching the price of gas, are we totally missing what's happening to the price of our food? The answer, it turns out, is a huge yes. Because this isn't just about fuel for our cars. It's about food for our tables.
You got to think of the Strait of Hormuz less like a pipeline and more like a vital artery for the entire global food system. And right now, that artery is getting seriously clogged. The effects, well, they're immediate and they are severe.
And this isn't some theoretical problem. To put a real number on it, right now, the World Food Program says there are 70,000 tons of food just stuck, sitting on boats, unable to get to the people who desperately need it. This is happening as we speak.
To really help us wrap our heads around this, we're going to lean on the analysis of Joseph Glaber from the International Food Policy Research Institute. He says there are really two different stories unfolding at the same time, so let's break them both down.
All right, story number one. This one is immediate, it's local, and it's about the countries that are right in the eye of the storm and are now staring down a potential hunger crisis.
You see, the thing about the nations in the Persian Gulf is that they are massive food importers. We're talking about places like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Iran. They depend heavily on shipments of grains, wheat, oils, you name it, and all of that has to pass through that single, narrow choke point. A blockade here is like someone locking their pantry from the outside. And the potential human cost here is just mind-boggling. The World Food Program is projecting that if this keeps up, within just 3 months, another 45 million people could be pushed into acute hunger. That's the first incredibly urgent story.
Okay, now for this second story. This one ripples out from the region and ends up affecting farmers and food prices all over the world. And it all comes down to one critical product: fertilizer.
So why is nitrogen-based fertilizer such a big deal? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like this. It's food for our food. It's the secret ingredient that allows modern farming to get the huge crop yields we need to feed the planet, especially for the big staples like wheat, corn, and rice.
And here's the stat that should really get your attention. A massive 35% of all the nitrogen fertilizer exported in the entire world comes out of the Persian Gulf. 35%! So when that supply gets threatened, it stops being a regional problem and becomes a global one fast. And all of that pressure lands squarely on the shoulders of farmers. As the supply gets squeezed, the prices shoot up. And that creates this really tough dilemma for a farmer thousands of miles away who's just trying to figure out what to plant.
Let me make this super simple. Imagine you're a farmer. You could plant corn, which gets you a bigger yield, but it's really thirsty for that super expensive nitrogen fertilizer. Or you could plant soybeans. They need less fertilizer, which is great, but they also produce less food per acre. When millions of farmers make that switch to soybeans, it can actually mean less total grain in the global supply. Now, to really understand the risk we're facing, we need some context. We've seen supply shocks like this before, right? Most of us remember the crisis back in 2022. So, how does today's situation stack up? Are we in a better position to handle this, or are we worse off? Well, the answer is kind of complicated. It's a bit of good news and a bit of bad news.
So the good news first. The world is a little better prepared this time around. We've had a couple of good harvests, which means global grain stocks are higher than they were in 2022. That gives the market a stronger buffer, a bit of a cushion to soften the blow.
But here's the catch. While fertilizer prices are high, they haven't quite hit those insane peaks we saw in 2022. The real problem for farmers is that the prices they get for their grain are currently low, really low. This means their profit margins are getting squeezed to almost nothing, which makes it incredibly hard for them to afford the fertilizer they need for the next harvest.
So, what happens now? Well, with a major supply artery clogged up, the global market is reacting exactly how you'd think it would, with a frantic scramble and a whole lot of uncertainty. Countries that rely on these imports are now in a mad dash, trying to find new places to buy fertilizer. They're trying to lock down their supply chains before the situation gets any worse.
A perfect example is India. They were heavily dependent on the Persian Gulf for urea, which is a key nitrogen fertilizer. Now, they are actively looking everywhere else, trying to make deals with new partners like Indonesia to spread out their risk. And let's be clear, we're not just talking about a temporary price spike here. The real worry is that if this crisis drags on, it could cause deep, long-lasting structural damage to the global food system, making it more fragile and more volatile for years to come.
The global food system is adapting. It's shifting in real time. But that leaves us with one critical, final question to think about. How many shocks like this can a system built on fragile choke points and just-in-time delivery actually withstand? That's something to keep an eye on.